Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Phase 2 and kind of explain what the data show and how things work. You could do this data manipulation yourself if you really wanted to. All you need is a way to convert a PDF into a Word document, put it into an Excel document, and then use the sort and filter features. But what I wanted to talk about is understanding why certain schools have a tremendous advantage over others in Phase 2. So when we're looking at this by state, and what I want to do is kind of look at the biggest states, California and Texas first, because we have a huge number of pharmacy schools, and that creates an incredible kind of dynamic that really is kind of a microcosm or a macrocosm of the microcosm that's happening at other different places. So in California right now, we had 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 schools of pharmacy, okay? And, you go on ASHP Match Stats, you're like, all right, well, let me see what's there. And, we look down and we see, okay, California has something like, I think 9 to 11, like 11 different places that need somebody. And there was more than one at one or two of them. So let's say, just to make things easy, let's just say that we have 13 schools and 13 sites. Okay. So in the world of fair, which this is not, we would say, all right, well, every school gets to send their very best student to these, and then that's what's going to work out. And to some extent, that actually does happen, where if this was just about taking the students from the very best schools, then some schools would match at a 100% and others would match at 0%. But over the years, and this continues to be the case, schools will favor having the very best person from the very worst matching school. It just doesn't matter. We just want good people. And I think that that's a great thing. But in Phase 2 is where you're really in a pickle. Because here we have, you've got UCS, I want to say it was San Francisco and UCSD and Southern Cal were the top 3 matching schools in California. So there was a clear preference, okay, for these schools. Now, you can argue with me and say, well, CHSU was third if you look at the match rates. But what I always like to look at rather than the match rates is how many registered for the match and how many matched rather than how many were active with the list. So registered means that you didn't get an interview yet. Active with the list means you got an interview and were able to rank somebody. And the reason I like that is because it's really saying, okay, well, all these people wanted a residency. I don't think we should discount them just because they didn't get an interview. They still want one. So those were the top 3. Okay, so UCSF, UCSD, and USC. And let's say that there are 13 spots. Okay, are there enough at any of those schools to fill those 13 spots? Well, at UCSF alone, you could fill those 13 spots 4 times over, which is insane, right? But there are 49 students at UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco, one of the best schools in the country, that have not matched. So not only are you competing for those 13 spots or 13 sites with 13 pharmacy schools, but UCSF, UCSD, and USC all combined are going to have, I think it was like 80 something, so 79, 86, 94 students from the 3 top matching schools in California are without a residency. So that obviously talks to another problem, which is we obviously don't have enough residencies. But can you imagine that ridiculousness that we have so many people at the top schools not getting the residency? But in the spirit of fairness, that means that students at the other schools, the site said, well, we appreciate that those are the top matching schools, but we want the top person from each school. Okay. So the problem is that this becomes exacerbated in phase 2 with so few sites. So now you're really looking at, what do I do about that? Well, let's talk about Texas first, and then we'll talk about what you do about it. So let's talk about Texas. So let's look at the number of pharmacy schools in Texas, and we'll see the ones that are, kind of shown the preference. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pharmacy schools in Texas that had a match. Okay. There was a strong preference for Texas, Houston, and Texas Tech. Okay. Now, again, the match rate, if you look at the match rate, Texas A&M would have edged out Texas Tech by a little bit. But when you're looking at that, you're saying, all right, I'm looking at Texas and Houston and, how many people didn't match there. Well, you've got 41 from just the top 2 matching schools. Okay. And then we can look and say, okay, well, let me go look at the ASHP match list and see how many opportunities there are. Well, if you look right now, there are 7. Okay. So that means that 40 students from the top matching schools, even if only they were in the match, okay, you're talking about 7 out of 40 matching, which is a terrible number, but it's just a weird number to divide. So you're talking about 17% of them matching. And you really want to think regional for phase 2. The story I always go back to is Key Gales, who was a guy from Chicago who went to school in Iowa, who matched in phase 2 in Indiana. And he did that. He went to the Midwest and he matched at an academic medical center in phase 2, which is the hardest thing to do. It is incredibly hard to match at an academic medical center in phase 1. In phase 2, it is near impossible. It is near impossible. And there's still some available. So what he did was he said, all right, well, I'm a guy from the Midwest. I am, and he was the very top of his class in terms of the PCOA. He was a very smart guy and very articulate. And it was just that he had this kind of ambulatory care, acute care kind of thing where it wasn't coming out right. Like what he was trying to say was, I prefer the ambulatory care aspect of acute care, but then he ended up actually doing acute care. So it came out as wishy-washy, I'm guessing. And then when he was very clear about what he wanted to do, they saw that he was really one of the best candidates in the country. And that's why he matched. So we're seeing these huge states that have very large numbers of students. So if you're talking about the number that didn't match from all the Texas schools, we're talking about 134 students, vying for whatever it is, 7 spots. And so if you want to do the math on something like that, clear 7 out of 134. And what I'm thinking is because, when I look at that list and I know that there were about 300 spots available in phase 2, that some of them just shut theirs down and just took it off because they just got too many applications. So you're talking about if only Texans who didn't match applied to the Texas residencies right now that are available, it's a 5% chance. So, what do you do? Well, it really comes down to you need to network, get with people and apply regionally. That is the key. Absolutely location. All right, well, I wish you the best, but I just wanted to kind of explain it.